Penn State is playing Nebraska, and whenever we have another opportunity to do a cross promotion with another On3 site, I love to be able to get people on here. And if you're watching this on Husker Online, I'm Thomas Frank Carr, the host of Blue White Illustrated, and I'm here with Sean Callahan. Sean, thank you for the time today. This is a co-equal thing, but just because I'm hitting the buttons, I'm introducing us. But this is for everybody to learn a little bit more about Penn State, Nebraska coming up this weekend. Thanks for agreeing to sit down and do this.
Well, hey, thank you. I need to find your barber in State College, by the way. I think we're both in good hands with the barber side, but I appreciate you having me on. Looking forward to getting out of State College. I've been there, trying to think. I was there in 2002. I was there in 2011, 13, and 17. So we haven't been there since 2017. I'm sure a lot's changed, but looking forward to getting out there.
It blows my mind how long Nebraska's been in the Big Ten when you really think about it, and how they were part of the start of the realignment in college football that we've seen just kind of turn into an avalanche recently. But it's been so long since Nebraska's been here that Penn State's been out there. When's the last time Penn State went to Nebraska? Was there a
2020?
2020. That's why I don't remember it, because that was a fever dream. That year was just totally an illusion in a lot of different ways. So it's been interesting because they've been another classic blue blood program in the Big Ten that has a lot of history, but that they haven't really necessarily met up a whole lot. But there's a lot of similarities between the programs, both historically and this year. To dive into it, similar situation at the quarterback spot with two backup quarterbacks, Dylan Rhule, Rhule Aller, suffering season-ending injuries. I'm just curious how that's gone with Nebraska, because we've gotten a little bit more data on how Penn State plans to build around Ethan Grunkmeyer on this side. With a bye week last week, what is the conversation about TJ Lateef at that starter position?
Yeah, TJ Lateef, came in as a 4-star, and it was honestly a tough sell, in my opinion, to get a quarterback like Lateef, because you had Dylan Rhule as a true freshman starter. So just to even land a quarterback like Lateef of his quality was a huge win last year, but I don't think anybody would have projected that we'd see Lateef on the field, let alone him playing as well as he did. I thought his first start on the road in LA, where he's from, he's a Compton, California native, you couldn't have drawn it up any better. He was, he was 13 of 15 passing with 3 touchdown passes, and he ran it well. And I think that's the difference with him and Dylan Rhule, is he does have a true running threat. In fact, the very first play in the UCLA game, they turned TJ loose and he took off and ran. And that kind of put UCLA's defense on their heels the entire game. But yeah, it came quickly with the Rhule injury. And TJ had hardly any time to kind of react. He's at least now had a bye week. And, Jim Knowles has gone against Nebraska when he was at Ohio State last year. So they at least have a decent feel for Jim Knowles, but obviously it's a different team. But I know Penn State's defense played really well last week against Michigan State, and I'm sure they're going to bring a lot of pressure and see how TJ Lateef handles it.
Yeah, and that's been interesting, is I feel like the plan to build around these two young quarterbacks is roughly the same, of run the ball, run forward, sort of offensive game plan, and then allow them to pick their spots and throw the ball. And I think Lateef's looked super comfortable in those situations. Do you think, has there been an emphasis? I guess this is what I'm trying to what to expect in terms of maybe something different from them this week. Do you think they would lean more into that running element and give that sort of threat to the run game to try and open things up against a Penn State defense that's been better against the run, but definitely susceptible to running quarterbacks and the run game in general this year?
Well, yeah, last week they only threw it 15 times at UCLA. So Emmett Johnson has carried it, anywhere from 20 to 28 times, really every game but one this year in the Power 4 schedule. The Minnesota game continues to be a real outlier. He only had 13 carries in his home city of Minneapolis, and Nebraska was sacked 9 times in that game. Which was a school record for Minnesota. And that game kind of changed the course of their season. I feel like if Nebraska wins the Minnesota game, they easily could have won the USC game. I mean, they were up 14-6, driving in at least field goal range to go up 17-6. And then Rhule got hurt, kind of changed the whole course of their year. So as you know, the margin of being a good team, because Penn State's the same way. I look at Penn State like, man, they easily could have won all the games they've lost, other than maybe Ohio State. Ohio State's the one, but every game they've lost, they could have won. And, that's the Big Ten in a nutshell. There's not much margin sometimes between being a 4 or 5 win team versus being an 8-9 win team. And Penn State is in that spot right now. But yeah, with them running the ball, I think Nebraska, when Riola was here, they were probably 60% pass. I think they've kind of, as Emmett Johnson's rise has happened, they've gone more to probably 60% plus run. And I don't expect that to change. I think this is going to be one of those games where NBC is going to have to be quick on their TV timeouts, because there's going to be a lot of long drives that probably bleed a lot of clock in this game on both sides.
Yeah, that was the motif for Penn State against Michigan State last week, where we're getting ready for the post game show. Happens right after Penn State games, and Penn State goes on a 9-minute drive in the fourth quarter. I'm like, I had to speed up all the post game process, because this team has turned into what they wanted to be at the beginning of the year to this, in a similar fashion, to be in a let's control the clock, bleed the clock, and score touchdowns if we can. The thing I'm interested in, flipping to the other side of the ball, and by the way, jump in if you want to, flip the script here and ask any question about Penn State, but the John Butler defensive evolution is interesting to me. So I watch a lot of film here, and I feel like they do a lot, especially up front, and I don't know that it feels like it's all connected at times, so I just want to get some backstory on John Butler's evolution, because it's very different from when it was here at Penn State, and what the kind of season-long narrative or narrative of his time at Nebraska has been, as far as that defensive style of what they're trying to do and accomplish.
Yeah, when Matt Rhule took the Nebraska job, I think he was really adamant about wanting to be a 3-3-5. I think he felt like the versatility of that scheme was the best for Nebraska. And so Tony White came in as a great 3-3-5 coach from Syracuse. He's now at Florida State. White left. They elevated John Butler into the defensive coordinator role. Phil Snow, who was Matt Rhule's former defensive coordinator at Baylor and also in the NFL of Carolina, is on this staff too. So you essentially have, the former defensive coordinator with John Butler, and Matt Rhule to his core is a defensive-minded coach too. So they've kept a lot of kind of the core concepts of what they do from year one of Matt Rhule. It's not like John Butler completely overhauled the system. I think they build the system to their personnel. And unfortunately, Nebraska last year lost some key defensive linemen. Ty Robinson, Nash Hutmacher, Jamari Butler, all of them were 5th and 6th year players. They held Ohio State to 1 rushing first down the entire game in Columbus. They're not built like that anymore. So I think they've had to build their defense from the back on in, which is why they're one of the best passing defenses in the country, and it's no fluke. They held Mekhi Lemon from USC to his worst game of the year by far. They completely shut down a Trojan passing attack that had passed on everybody. They've continued, though, to struggle with the run. And I think a lot of it is they just don't have the depth or maybe the experience in terms of the body sizes to play that 3-man front effectively. And they've also battled some things at linebacker. I mean, Vincent Shavers is one of their more athletic guys. He's had a hand injury. Deshaun McCullough has been out lately with a shoulder. He's back now this week. And those are 2 of their best guys on the linebacker roles. Javen Wright is a 7th-year senior. Wow. Battled blood clots throughout his career. And when he's on, he's on. But they've battled some things kind of in the middle of the defense as well as the defensive line. The secondary, though, continues to be the most consistent thing. And the real core of this Nebraska defense, they don't give up big plays. They might give up long drives. Like we've seen multiple 14, 15 play type drives, but they don't give up like the home runs other than the Michigan game. Michigan was the one team with Justice Haynes and Bryce Underwood and those guys when they were on that day. They got some home runs, and that was why Nebraska lost that game in a lot of ways, along with some of the protection issues they had protecting Dylan Raiola that day.
We're recording this a little bit earlier in the week, so I don't know if the line will change, but the last time we talked about it, Penn State was a 9.5-point favorite at home. Are you surprised by that? When I heard that number, I thought that was entirely too high, because as you mentioned earlier, Nebraska, like just to cut to it, Nebraska's a good football team. There seems to be, I think, on this side of the fence, a certain amount of disbelief because, where Penn State was and how they were as the number 2 team in the country, and like they have not lived up to those expectations or aspirations. And Nebraska also having like those hopes of maybe a Big Ten title run or a postseason run. Where they are right now, probably not going to get there. So there is this, I think, imposter syndrome that people feel outside. But when you watch Nebraska, they're a good football team. Are you surprised that the line is what it is heading into the game?
A little bit, but I've always looked at this game, no matter what Penn State's record, the toughest game on the schedule. Like, I consider this game much more difficult than at Minnesota, obviously. I still consider it more difficult than USC and Lincoln. I mean, the Michigan game is the only other one I'd put on the level because the talent. I mean, Michigan and Penn State recruit at a different level than most of the Big Ten. And so when it comes down to it, in terms of pro prospects, talented players, Penn State still has a lot of those guys. They've had some bad breaks and things have not fallen right for them, but they still have talent on the line of scrimmage on offense and on defense, and they've got good running backs. So they are built to still win in this league. They've just had some bad breaks. I mean, you guys should have beat Indiana. I mean, I don't think anybody is going to dispute that. You had Indiana beat in State College, and that would have been the greatest win of any team in college football. So the Oregon game, they were a play away from winning that game. So you know what this Penn State team can be. They've just not delivered that. And Nebraska hasn't really had a lot of those moments. I mean, the UCLA game, you could argue, was one of their best moments of the year, just the way they played and executed throughout that game. Cincinnati win in Arrowhead was a great moment for this team, but I still think Penn State.
Is it the schedule? Like, is the perception based on partly on the schedule is kind of what you're saying there?
Well, Nebraska's going to go through this year in the Big Ten without playing arguably one playoff team. Michigan could maybe get in. That's a long shot. How many other teams in the Big Ten with these 9-game schedules can say, we didn't have to play Ohio State, we didn't have to play Indiana, we didn't have to play Oregon? That's pretty hard to do. So Nebraska's had things break right. Penn State's down. Michigan is kind of holding serve, but they're not a playoff team, at least right now. And then obviously Cincinnati was a non-conference win for Nebraska, but USC is possibly a playoff team, but they haven't drawn like one of those games that we've seen in the past where you have to go to Columbus and you're a 20-point dog in Columbus. So they've been very fortunate not to have a game like that on the schedule.
Yeah, and I think you make a great point of they're in that kind of middle of the Big Ten, the part that's going to cannibalize itself as to who's going to be in the prove-it situation to go and be in that upper tier. And so that's been kind of the USC place where they're not expected to be a college football playoff team because we were expecting at a certain point Penn State to be a part of that, and they definitely aren't this year. So, there's only so many teams for the Big Ten that are going to go, and maybe this year it's USC, but going into the game, you might not have known. The only other thing, the thing I think I'm most curious about after the football stuff, and I'm dialed in on the football between the lines, but how did the team deal with the Matt Rhule rumors earlier in this year? I mean, this has been the biggest connection between these two teams this year. Is the rumors that Matt Rhule was going to be the next head coach at Penn State the minute James Franklin was fired, and then of course that is not how this has played out since then. So how do you think they handled and navigated that situation internally and then within the fan base?
Yeah, it was a unique week or two there for sure, and I think after they had won at Maryland, things really ramped up, and then they went on the road to Minnesota, and that was kind of the pinnacle of the discussion, and because it really did look like Matt Rhule was the lead person that they wanted for the job at that point. Vegas had him as the favorite to get the position. We know the relationship with Pat Kraft, but once they lost to Minnesota, I feel like things cooled off quite a bit. But and a lot of people say the distraction of that is why Nebraska wasn't as focused in that game. But you can't really prove that. I mean, that was just kind of a thought that people had. You'll never really know. But, I mean, it's hard. I mean, you're on Pat McAfee talking about it. I mean, you're on everyone in the country was talking about Matt Rhule and Penn State for that entire week. So that 1 week was tough. But I think that really cooled off after Minnesota. And then, obviously, the new contract got figured out at that point. But now there's people wondering, hey, now that James Franklin's buyout was only $9 million, Matt Rhule's buyout at Nebraska is $15 million. All bets are off. I mean, I'm not saying Matt Rhule's going to Penn State, but Penn State got a hell of a coupon on James Franklin to get him for $9 million versus $50 million, as far as the buyout numbers go.
Right. Yeah. And that's been the thing we've been talking about over at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com during the coaching search is like, don't rule anybody out. You can put guys on the back burner, but like at this point, Penn State made a big swing, and so for them to then go conservative after that is kind of like that would not make a whole lot of sense. You have any questions for me? You got anything on the other side? I'm good. You filled in a lot of the gaps in terms of what I think Penn State fans need to know about Nebraska. Anything on the other side?
I'm curious on the atmosphere for this week. Students leave town Friday for break, technically.
Yeah.
How many of the students do you think are going to stick around for a game Saturday night? And how many Penn State faithful with this being has there ever been a night game this late in State College, November 22nd for a night game? It seems like
Not that I
quite an
can think of.
outlier in the history of night games.
Yeah, not that I can think of. I think the overall atmosphere. So there's two elements of the atmosphere: the mood of the people that are there and how many people are there. Because the mood of the atmosphere has gotten much better after James Franklin's release and Terry Smith taking over. He is beloved by the fans that are showing up online, showing up in chat, showing up in person for Penn State. So I think there's going to be strong support. And then the students are what they are, for one of these end of the year regular season games. I don't think it's going to be a full stadium. I don't think it's going to be a jam-packed stadium. Usually, if they get 95,000 for a game like this, I think they're in good territory. We've seen previously there's only the funny thing is there's only a couple of seasons where you can really point to late season, no playoff or whatever it might have been in that iteration, national championship aspirations with the Thanksgiving game in Penn State history. Normally, like, they're in a New Year's Six Bowl locked in. And so, like, this is a slightly new territory, so I don't know what the bottom is, but I think the win against Michigan State and the goodwill around Terry Smith is going to draw a good number of fans. I don't think there's going to be a lot of students there, but I think the fan base proper is going to show up for this game for sure.
And correct us on this, you have the once a year whiteout. This won't be a whiteout game though. It will just be wear what you want to wear game. There's no call for wear white or anything.
They tried to do I think it was the helmet stripe game for the Indiana game against the big time opponent, and fans just they're out on the coordinated choreographed what you're wearing to the game. I also think that there's going to be a good number of tickets available, and there's going to be a lot of Nebraska red in the crowd. So I don't think that there is a themed game for this one, although I don't know that off the top of my head. But it's not a whiteout, certainly not. It would be like the helmet stripe or the pinstripe game or whatever it might be. One of the stripe games. I have not been in the stands since 2009, so I have not paid attention to the dress code in quite a while. But I don't think that no matter what they want to do, I don't think it'll show up the way they want this week.
But this is. Have you done? Is this the latest night game that you can recall as far as into the calendar?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I was not expecting this to be a 7:00 game. I think the two brands, the size of this is why it is, but I didn't expect this to be, because there hasn't been. Normally, this is the way they had done it for a while was, Penn State has their unrivaled slogan. So they don't have a conference rival at the end of the year to have as that last game every single year. So they've cycled through Michigan State and Rutgers, for the most part, as their end of the season games. And so usually it's those, and there's not as much around those games unless it's for Penn State to win a spot into the Big Ten championship game. And they're usually a noon or a 3:30 kick, because they're just lower priorities over the other big rivalry weekend or, second to last game of the season. So no, Penn State usually is not in the spotlight in the last two games because they're playing teams that they're a 14, 21-point favorite over.
Well, I remember the power that Penn State had a couple of years ago, because they needed a second Black Friday game, and it was at Michigan State. And Penn State had enough power at that point to say, we'll play you on Black Friday, but it needs to be in a dome in Detroit. And they moved that game indoors. So Michigan State's senior day game was not in East Lansing. That's why it does surprise, because I know there are certain teams in this league that have November night game tolerances, Michigan being one of them. I don't know about Ohio State, but it is surprising that Penn State obviously agreed that they were okay with a game this late. Because it's not easy getting out of State College, let alone at night. I'll never forget. I was there in 2002, and that had to be one of the first night games in history at Penn State. I don't know how many were before 2002. There might have been a few, but not many. And I'll never forget how raucous that environment was. And that was the Larry Johnson Penn State team that was kind of a turnaround team at that point for Joe Paterno. Yeah, and they hammered Nebraska, and that crowd was just ferocious. People from Nebraska still talk about the 2002 Penn State crowd, just how, it was nuts in that place. And, the night game feel, we had never seen really anything like that in the Big 12 for a September night game in State College, where it was probably 80, 90 degrees out still. But yeah, getting out of there, I'll never forget how long it took to get back. I think we drove to Harrisburg, and I'll never forget that drive home. How long? I think we got to Harrisburg at like 4 a.m.
They've made a little bit of improvement to 322, but not much. Like there's still going to be a bottleneck getting out, and that is the beauty of State College. It's one of the reasons I live here and why I stuck around is like it's got big town environments like that, but it is. I don't think people realize it's a small town in the middle of central Pennsylvania.
What is the population of State College again?
The last census it was 40,000.
Not counting not counting the college, obviously, when the students are there.
No, I don't. Not counting the college. So, and like Center County. If you take Center County, I think it's 100,000 people just in Center. So it's not even. It's about the size of Lincoln, Nebraska. Like the entire population is about the size of Lincoln.
Lincoln's 300,000.
Oh, okay. So I was looking at the wrong because I was actually curious about that of comparable Big Ten teams. So yeah, not even close then. Not even close to that size.
And then Omaha is 45 minutes away, and that's close to 1 million. So, Penn State is isolated. I mean, it'd be like central Nebraska away from Lincoln and Omaha because, the drive from Pittsburgh even to State College, I know that's what a lot of people do. I mean, they're going to go to Pittsburgh and drive in, or obviously Harrisburg seemed to be, but we're fortunate we're going to be flying into State College through O'Hare, so we don't have to make any drives.
Oh, you're flying into the State College Airport. Nice.
Yeah, we're on the Jim Delaney. They called the Jim Delaney special when I think they added those O'Hare flights so the Big Ten people could get into State College.
Yeah, they used to also have a connector to Detroit, and that went away. So I
remember that because that's how we got there years ago. Again, we haven't been to State College since 2017, and it was Trace McSorley. It was Tanner Lee for Nebraska. It was raining, and the score was very misleading. I mean, Nebraska made that game closer than what it really was. I mean, Penn State dominated that game in 2017.
Yeah, it's funny too the Black Friday conversation and playing games on Friday. There was a couple of years of the Big Ten where Penn State agreed to play on Friday games, and then I think in the last 5 years that went away.
At Maryland, you guys had that at Maryland, and that's the only time I can recall an Ohio State, Michigan, or Penn State team had played. Now, years ago,
they played Illinois. I think in like 2019 or 20 some at some point they played Illinois at night on the road, and that was the last one I remember.
Michigan many years ago on a Friday night. This is like 2003. Played in the Minneapolis Metrodome against Minnesota on a Friday night. I still remember that game, but that was kind of like an outlier to the old whatever TV deal was back then. But yeah, I was fascinated how much they slimmed down the Friday games this year. It went from like 9, like not counting Black Friday, to like 4 or 5 this year. So they cut down the number of Friday games on that Fox package by half, and it seems like they're using it more as kind of like a thing to help the West Coast travel, where you get like an extra day to kind of get back.
Yeah, and it seems like I think there is a certain navigating massaging of like this new environment in the Big Ten with a lot of those different the politics I think are different now with so many different voices in the room, where before it was like Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan were going to say like we're not playing on Fridays, and so that was like that was a decision. And now it's like I think there's just a little bit more in terms of like the overall decision-making process might change because of the size of the conference and some of those things that you just mentioned.
Well, in Penn State and Michigan and Ohio State, they're too valuable on Saturday. That's the honest truth. I mean, sure, it'd be great if they could play on Friday, but they can't. I mean, the Big Ten needs those teams on Saturday at 11, 2:30, and 6:30. Sorry, I'm going Central Time on you. The real time is Central Time, as we would say here, but
my in-laws live out west, and so I've had to, for the last 10 years or so, I've had to do like the calculations in my head. Also, like as an inside baseball thing, like our entire company is set to Central Time. So it is the clock that rules our life, except that we live here on the East Coast, and there is the absolute East Coast bias of I'm still going to say everything out in East Coast time, but like the clock at On3 does run on Central Time.
Nothing's better though when you play the West Coast game, and you guys had one this year against UCLA where it's the 3:30 CBS, but out there it's 12:30. I mean, that is a beautiful kickoff time, and the game is over by like 3:34 in the afternoon. Your post game show's on at 6. I mean, that is the perfect Saturday. if you get one of those West Coast games at 12:30. Unfortunately, the UCLA Nebraska game was a 6 p.m. Pacific time kick. So
Oh.
we had a lot later night in Pasadena.
Well, I think that is also why this game in particular is a 7 p.m. kick, because of the size of those two programs and the fan bases. This is, if you've got just these two logos, you're going to use them to highlight whatever it is, no matter what the record is. And there are, I think, compelling storylines for Nebraska still trying to fight for their postseason and their hopes there, and Penn State trying to get to the postseason. So there's compelling stuff and fan bases that even when they're angry, and Penn State fans, it's like you kicked a hornet's nest this year. They're still showing up and they're still going to be watching the game.
Well, in Indiana, it does not draw well for as good as they are. And it's just the reality of what their brand is. It's a basketball brand, and they're becoming a football brand, obviously, very quickly. But they have not been like the ratings draw that a Penn State or Michigan obviously is going to be.
Yeah. I was thinking about this. It's interesting, the institutional advantage of being good at football since the 70s, right? There's a layer of advantage that you just can't replicate. And I'm curious in this era of NIL how TV and how quickly can you build those things? Because for Penn State, it took 30 years, and like if it weren't for that, State College wouldn't be what it is. Like the Penn State wouldn't be what it is because of its location. So like, can you manufacture that sort of fan base, that sort of size, that sort of following and passion in the NIL era? Because it is absolutely part of the fabric of winning is the money you can draw, and that's also part of how interested TV is in you. This has been a fun conversation. I've enjoyed as much as like I'm always like, hey, what's up with the quarterback and the left guard? Like, this is good stuff. I like talking about the things outside the lines as well.
Well, yeah, no, we're hitting Kelly's Steakhouse on Friday night. I'm not
nice. Bollesburg. Yeah. That's there's a couple of, again, it's a small town, so there's a couple of places to go for like things like that. And Kelly's is the place to go if you want to get a steak. And I'm going to throw in some shameless plugs here for one of our sponsors. If you're downtown, or if you come in Friday, I don't know when you're coming in Friday, Anti-Fragile Brewing Company in downtown State College.
Okay, we'll check that out. Yeah, we'll have time. I mean, we're staying in a house by the stadium. We ended up getting we've never done this before in all my travel years. We did the Airbnb route, and we can walk.
Careful.
We can walk to the stadium.
No, that's exactly what you want to do. As a townie here, I've been here since 2008. I was trying to buy a house, and like all of the houses that you're like, they're all Airbnbs for weekends like this. So like, I'm like, I had a little twitch in my eye when you were talking about, yeah, we got an Airbnb right by the stadium. But that's exactly where you want to be. That's exactly the situation, the setup you want to be. So excited to have you in and host you here in Happy Valley.
All right, thank you, and anytime, and look forward to seeing your staff at the game, and hopefully we get a good game and some nice. Luckily, the weather looks like it will be at least decent compared to what this time of year could be in State College.
Yeah. That's always last year's home game. It was 30 degree or 39 degrees, but there was a 25-mile-an-hour wind. It felt like -7. And then so like this weekend, it just like all the snow from this morning just melted. So we should have a decent game from an atmosphere standpoint from the weather, and hopefully the game cooperates as well. Sean Callahan, publisher for Huskers Online, thanks for doing this. Appreciate you, and look forward. For Penn State fans, where can they follow along if they want more information about what you guys do?
HuskerOnline.com, obviously, our Husker Online channel. We post a lot of great shows every week, and good way. They're hour-long shows, so you can kind of get caught up on some intel on Nebraska. But appreciate T. Frank having getting the chance to come on the channel, and looking forward to Saturday.
Oh, and by the way, my barber, I have a safety razor. This is all homemade. I haven't been to a barber in like 15 years, and then I decided to start shaving my head. So I can point you in the direction of the right razor, but we're all homemade here on the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel.
Well, it looks good.
It's always nice seeing somebody with the same look. So we'll see you around town here. Appreciate it.
All right. Hey, thanks, T. Frank.